$3.6 billion. This is how much Lawrence Stroll, the owner of the Aston Martin F1 team, is worth. Described by many as a force of nature, Lawrence is currently ranked the 780th richest man in the world as of the 4th of April 2023. And so he's undeniably the richest man in Formula 1. And he's planning to put his money where his mouth is and take Aston Martin to being world champions. He's even got a car collection worth over $140 million and a $200 million yacht. But how did he get to this position? How did Lawrence grow a net worth 72 times that of Red Bull boss Christian Horner? Well, he made his billions actually in the fashion industry. And let me show you how. Well, Lawrence Sheldon Strollovich, yes, his surname isn't actually Stroll, was born in Montreal, Canada on the 11th of July 1959. And much like Lance Stroll, his son, Lawrence was born into serious wealth. His father, Leo Strollovich, made his millions by bringing brands like Pierre Cardin and Ralph Lauren to Canada. And so Lawrence grew up with a silver spoon and soon followed in his father's footsteps by getting involved in the clothing industry. Come Lawrence's 17th birthday, instead of getting a new piece of kit for his birthday like most kids do, his dad gave him the licenses to sell Pierre Cardin in Canada. Basically, what a license is a way of Pierre Cardin, the clothing company, to give the rights to sell their products in other countries. And so Lawrence began his career in the fashion industry, selling Pierre Cardin women and children's clothes. After 15 years or so of that, at the age of 30, Lawrence was bidding for a car. And well, it turned out he was bidding against a man called Ralph Lauren. Lauren wasn't very well known at the time, basically a small-time shirt maker from the States who struggled to push his clothes into Europe. And well, Lawrence lost the bid for the car, but did manage to strike a deal to sell Ralph Lauren in Europe. Understandably, Lawrence knew how big of an opportunity this was. But Lawrence knew he couldn't just do this alone, so enter a man called Silas Chow, who is a Chinese textile manufacturer and friend of Lawrence through both their dads having worked together. And so they teamed up, setting up Sportswear Holdings Limited in 1989, and over the next few years they took Ralph Lauren from nothing to a major success in Europe, and unsurprisingly got the attention from some other US clothing companies. It was Tommy Hilfiger, and they were looking for a bit of a rescue deal after one of their investors ran out of money. And well, Stroll and Chow bought 70% of the company, with Hilfiger owning 22.5% and the CEO owning the rest. Under the new management, Chow managed the supply side and distribution, while Stroll controlled the marketing and growth strategy. This combination took Tommy Hilfiger to another level, helped especially by the demand of casual clothing increasing in the 90s. Snoop Dogg even wore the stuff on SNL back in 1994. Basically, Stroll and Chow knew their rich customers bought the clothes for the image and not so much the quality. And so they basically reduced the quality and slightly reduced the price, making millions in the process. By 2000, the company was achieving $2 billion in sales revenue per year compared to $25 million in 1989. And eventually, the company was sold in 2010 to PVH for $3 billion. And his initial investment of $35 million turned into several hundred million. As of today, they are achieving annual revenues of almost $5 billion. And they managed to get a certain F1 world champion to work with them. But for Lawrence, it was on to the next thing. I'm talking about Michael Kors. For those that aren't aware, this is how Lawrence made the majority of his net worth. In 2003, Stroll and Chow bought 85% of the company for $85 million. They then did the same as with Tommy by lowering the prices and quality, and also expanding into perfume, watches and handbags. But the company grew the most interestingly during the 2007 financial crisis by buying up mall spaces for pennies. Lawrence then led Michael Kors to an initial public offering, basically when the company is floated on the stock exchange in 2011. Well, once they hit the markets, Michael Kors was valued at $3.6 billion. So Stroll and Chow made over $3 billion from an initial $85 million investment. That's a return of over 3,500%. Through all of Lawrence's investments in fashion, he made around $2.6 billion in total. Now, even though Lawrence is at this point a billionaire, he still always looks for a good deal, which is why he would love the sponsor for this video, ExpressVPN. Have you ever found yourself desperate to watch that new film or new TV series online, but it's not available in your country? I certainly have many times. Well, ExpressVPN allows you to change your digital location to another country, meaning you can watch those films and shows you were so excited to watch, but couldn't. ExpressVPN also allows you to be protected from hackers or anyone trying to steal your private information whenever you're on public Wi-Fi. Oh, and it also stops anyone from seeing your browser activity. So to start with ExpressVPN, just click the link below and get your first 3 months completely free. So, $2.6 billion. What could a man possibly do with all that money? Well, he chucked it into an old hobby of his, motorsport. Now, the way he did this was firstly by buying his own circuit, Mont Tremblant in Quebec, for $625,000. Then he chucked money towards his son's racing career by firstly investing $10 million into junior racing team Prema, and eventually spending $35 million to get Lance a drive at the Williams F1 team in 2017. And then just 1 year later, he bought an entire Formula 1 team. For those that don't know, back in 2018, the Force India F1 team fell into administration, and it was Lawrence that bought up the team for $117 million. He then renamed it Racing Point, kicked out Esteban Ocon, and replaced him with his son. But it wouldn't remain Racing Point for very long. This was because in early 2020, Lawrence continued shopping for businesses by leading a group of investors to invest £182 million in return for 16.7% of the Aston Martin car company. This was Lawrence's biggest and riskiest investment he's ever made, with Aston Martin really in the dumps. By March 2020, he increased his shareholding to 25% and became executive chairman. But looking at the share price now compared to when he bought it, it's clear there is still a long way to go. One way in which he planned to turn Aston Martin around is through renaming his Racing Point F1 team to Aston Martin. Now, I made a video very recently about Aston Martin and their hopes moving forward, but I'll sum it all up very quickly. Basically, Lawrence said when renaming to Aston Martin that they plan to be challenging for championships within 5 years, so 2026. And well, he's certainly put his money where his mouth is, investing $300 million in the team since taking over by building a state-of-the-art factory and bringing in 300 new employees. As of the Australian Grand Prix, they stand second in the championship with 3 podiums in just 3 races. They are definitely a team to keep an eye on, and I genuinely believe they can be title contenders in the near future. So there's no denying Lawrence is a seriously successful guy. Yes, he came from serious wealth, but respect to him for making the most of that privilege. So what are Lawrence's business lessons? What are the most important values he has followed that has allowed him to achieve so much? Well, number 1 is he values passion over everything. He has said himself, when I get excited about something, I get very passionate. And when I get very passionate, I win. Simply put, Lawrence loves what he does, and so is incredibly driven to succeed. Secondly, he values having the best people around him that he can delegate to and trust. The more he trusts other people, the less work he has to do himself, which allows him to focus on the things that really matter. And finally, Lawrence is a big, bold risk taker. As you've seen throughout his whole life, Lawrence will put a serious amount of money on the line when he knows something can be achieved. For example, he has said that the only reason he bought up Force India was because he knew the cost cap being introduced would increase the value of the team. And boy was he correct. So there we have it. That is how Lawrence Stroll made his money. He did it through serious spending, bold ambitions, and massive faith in his own abilities. And whether you like the guy or not, you've got to at least respect what he has built. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments section below what you think of Lawrence, and as always, make sure to like, subscribe, and smash that notification bell to be reminded of any new videos.